Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Join us every Wednesday to learn about the latest cutting-edge developments in the real-time communications industry. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSWITCH Solutions. Get support and professional services directly from the creators of the FreeSWITCH open source project, solving your issues in the most efficient, stable, and scalable way possible. Get the FreeSWITCH advantage. Visit freeswitch.com. Also brought to you by ClueCon, the premier technology conference for developers by developers. Join us every summer in Chicago. ClueCon kicks off on Monday with our annual hackathon, The Coder Games, followed by 3 days of technology-rich presentations discussing telecom, WebRTC, and IoT from developers around the world. To learn more, visit ClueCon.com or call 877-74-CLUE.
And welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is the 17th of October, 2018, and this week we're going to be joined by Giovanni. Anyway, for you guys that don't know Giovanni, he is going to be joining us all the way from Italy. He is the author of such FreeSWITCH modules as GSM Open, and even the old Skype module that would allow you to connect FreeSWITCH to Skype. That's been retired since Skype made changes to their APIs and such. But Giovanni's been around for a long time, and I think today he's going to be showing us some really cool stuff. So you guys hang out for that. First, let's go over and see Miss Abby for the news. Abby, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today on ClueCon Weekly. If you have any questions during this call, please comment them in the YouTube, HipChat, or IRC channels, and we will try to answer them live during this call. So yesterday, we were all in Chicago for the Illinois Institute of Technology's Real-Time Communications Conference. But today, we are all in beautiful San Francisco. So hi, live from San Francisco. Make sure to follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all of our other socials to stay up to date with the FreeSWITCH team and see what we've been doing up on our trip. Also, make sure to subscribe to our newsletter to see some awesome pictures of what we've been doing. So our next FreeSWITCH training is on November 8th. So if you are interested in learning more about our FreeSWITCH training, you can visit our website. Also, ClueCon is closer than it appears. So we are now open for sponsors. So if you think that a partnership would be a good fit for you, you can contact us at sharon@freeswitch.com for more information on that. So next week on ClueCon Weekly, we will continue our usual blog spot. But for today, we're going to go straight over to our community corner.
Oh, hi. Go on.
So for today's Community Corner, we have a question for Michael Jarris. And that question is from Andrew Keel. Andrew Keel asks, to FreeSWITCH users, I have noticed when making calls internationally to the UK from Australia, the following STP sometimes happens when the call lands in FreeSWITCH. Okay, so we're going to paste this so you can all see it in the chat. This then creates the following message around call answer. So switch media in no 283 in SDP, liberal DTMF mode, adding 101 as the telephone event. From this point on, DTMF is not detected by the FreeSWITCH IVR service. I assume I would need to use mod DPT tools, start DTMF to detect the DTMF tones within the channel, which I am yet to test. However, my main question is whether there is a channel variable that would enable me to check whether RFC 2833 support is not inside the SDP. Regards, Andrew Keel. So Mike, this is a pretty common question in regards to DTMF, right?
It absolutely is. So we made some design decisions about 2833 support just because it's so common. They're almost everywhere. When you get into other parts of the world, occasionally you will have people who don't support it. It's not very frequent. That being said, analog DTMF detection is a little bit of an expensive thing, so we didn't want to turn it on automatically, and there's also people who don't put it in the SDP but send it anyway. So we didn't want to turn it on automatically, but we do give you easy ways to do it. In fact, right in the default configs, that would be in default.xml right around line 141. There's an example that is commented out that looks at the switch R SDP variable and does a regex on it, checks if telephone event is in there, and if it is not, runs the start GTMF app. Absolutely, that is what you need to do to test for it. It's no surprise you're not getting DTMF. They aren't trying to send it to you. They are sending it inline. And start GTMF will make that work for you. It's a little bit weird to see a provider still in 2018 that does in-band instead of 2833 DTMF. The other thing that you need to look at is if you need to send DTMF the other direction, you might need to look at the generating the DTMF options that are out there. But there is an example right in conf vanilla dial plan default.xml line 141. You just need to uncomment that and it should work.
So Mike, when the SDP is negotiated, that 101 actually is 2833.
Well, so in this case, it's not actually negotiated. What we do as a fallback is we pretend that they sent it as 101, because there's a bunch of devices out there that will do 2833 on 101 and not negotiate it. That's awful, but we're just kind of wedging something in there and saying, we're going to listen on 101 even though you didn't say it, so that things just work more often. The liberal DTMF means that we'll accept it even though you didn't respond to it. There are a few variables out there. If you want to dig in a little bit, you can look at the info app and get an idea about what's out there. The switch R SDP is the one interesting one, but there's also, let me find the right ones, give me a second. There's also DTMF type is an interesting variable to look at. And there's RTP _ 2833 _ send _ payload, and the same with receive, RACV instead of send. Those are all variables that'll interestingly inform what's going on there. So if you throw the info app in your dial plan, you can see all the variables and see what's there. There honestly might be a little bit cleaner way to do it in the dial plan, but you can kind of view a little bit better what's there. The liberal, where we just do the 101, even though you didn't say it again, is just something to interoperate with broken things, and there's a lot of those out there.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike. Answers from the experts.
No problem.
So today we have Giovanni. Ciao, Giovanni. Come va?
Ciao, Michael. It's going well. It has been a tough week, and it's just the beginning, but I'm already on my knees. So I will find out a way to be more resilient and strong. Maybe I have to eat some more.
We just saw you in Orlando.
Yeah. We were in Orlando and we had a lot of fun. And by the way, the FreeSWITCH team was shining on Astricon. And I think that the whole voice over IP and the whole WebRTC community is very happy that slowly and steady all the projects are converging in one only community, that on each step on the OpenCPS Summit, on Kamaili Award, on Astricon, and definitely on ClueCon that has started its all. I mean, it was ClueCon that began to get together all the real-time communication open source project under one only roof. And I mean, we strive for interoperability and also to be, I mean, all friends and have fun together. And also, this is really good occasion to meet with industry leader and also to find some kind of business ClueCon. So I definitely will tell anyone let's meet in ClueCon next year. That it will be. We already knows where we will be.
Absolutely. I got to tell you, I very much enjoy traveling around the world and going to all these events and just meeting interesting characters and learning unbelievable information. And, you know, it's really, it's unbelievable, the mind share that's actually at these individual events.
But also,
And each
because
one,
in our
they're all
line,
converging, but they're all a little different too, and they all kind of specialize in certain areas. So, you know, if you there's it's best to go to all of them, but you know, at the same time, there's those ones that are specific for your particular needs as well.
and you know, in our line of business, in our industry, it's very fast to getting too much into too difficult problems, and you very seldom, in a very rare occasion, you have the occasion to speak with someone else that understand what are your problems and what actually are you doing. And you know, in our conferences, and particularly in ClueCon, but also in Astricon, in Camalio World, in OpenShips Summit, and by the way, also in FOSDEM in Brussels. In all these occasions, you find the other people that, I mean, more or less, we are so little in number, maybe some hundreds in all the world. So at least
No, but the
now
thing
and
is, it
then,
drops off. Even hundreds, you're talking about hundreds of attendees. But then when it starts getting to the speakers, the numbers really drop off.
yeah, that's true too. But at least, I mean, there is also people that doesn't do presentations, but they are so knowledgeable. And I mean, I have many in mind, and with or the one maybe that is striking the most is, for example, Alex Balashov. That very is rare that he do some presentation, but he knows so much and so well about Camalio, about real-time communication, about scaling. He do mainly big installations for ITSPs, and so it's so nice. I mean, to get all together and speak with us all, and I'm happy with this.
Well, it's like I spent down in Orlando. I spent an hour talking to Adrian from AG Projects. Right? I don't think he's ever spoke.
And I can I had no time to prepare a formal presentation, but I would like to give a little bit of a view of one of the things that I'm doing in the latest time, and is mainly about SIP and WebRTC. and particularly using FreeSWITCH as the engine for WebRTC, both conferencing and just plain telephony, but through WebRTC. And what you need is fundamentally come out with some kind of client that is both easy to use and that is portable and that works across all the different platforms. And
I remember you've been working on this for like 2 years now, right?
Yeah, and I think that slowly and steady things are coming, because now we have a kind of good support for WebRTC also on iOS. So at least we have also the iPhone on board, but for now only through Safari, so only through the browser, and you cannot yet have applications that use WebRTC primitives. So
I wonder why that is.
The web view of Safari is not yet supporting WebRTC, but Safari itself, it is, and this is a very good start, also because it will be very easy for Apple to just give the same capabilities that Safari has to the underlying web view. And in this way will be available also for Chrome, for Firefox on iOS, and to the app. And this will open support also for iPhones. That I know in US a lot of people use iPhones, and I don't know exactly why, but I know that people likes it, and so and so we all must support it. Also, if Apple itself is kind of giving us problems, because there is no way, for example, for Chrome or Firefox to use WebRTC.
It's because they want everyone to use FaceTime.
Yeah, this from one side. From the other side, there is also a big clash with Google, and this clash is mainly, is an industrial clash, and they try to keep it not compatible. So, for example, Firefox, Safari on iOS and iPhone by at large do not support VP8, so do not support the standard video codec, and that is, by the way, is also mandatory, of WebRTC. And they do not support it. They only support H.264, and the official reason is because they got hardware codec decoder into iPhones, and so supporting VP8 would be too much heavy for the iPhone. Obviously, this is not true because the iPhone is strong enough for VP8 as any other phone. But they still not support. So, for example, in our case, we will need to transcode, and this is another of the areas where FreeSWITCH is shining, because there is often discussion if you are better using MCU, so a mixing center for your conference or for your phone calls, or a simply routing of packets like an SFU. So let's say the real difference is like between Jitsi and FreeSWITCH, or between FreeSWITCH and Janus, or for example also with Asterisk. Asterisk has support for SFU.
But the question is, should we really be transcoding?
If you want to use iPhone, yes. You cannot avoid to transcode because iPhone only support H.264, and Firefox supports both, supports H.264 and VP8, but Chrome supports only VP8. So you end up transcoding. If you put iPhone in the mix. I think that in a short while there will be support for VP8 also on iPhone, but we will see. And
what about VP9? VP9's out, right?
VP9, I'm not an expert in video codecs, but I believe that VP9, as the name implies, is just an advancement on VP8, and if they start support VP8, they will support the VP9 too also, because it's just a marketing thing. They just want not to be compatible. I mean, this but for FaceTime, and probably they have also other products in the pipeline, etc. So we will see that. But in the meantime, one thing that is interesting is to understand that we really can use WebRTC as a complementary of real-time communication. For example, as an extension and an interoperability with PBX. And what I will try to give some a little bit of demonstration. And
we love demonstrations.
It will be very clunky because I'm using my main computer for the conference now with you, and so I can't have another browser here and share the screen. So what I will do, I will move. I will take the webcam with my hands, and we will go to another computer and phones, and we will see in that way. Because
we can use mine. I could put it in there. Look.
So bear with me, and I hope no one will puke, because it will be a little wobbly. Okay. And so okay. I don't know if you can see it enough, but this is one. Opa.
So what address do you want me to go through on my cell phone?
This is one client, and this is another on the iPhone, a little iPhone, and then we have here. We have an app on this Android, and
It looks like you got enough phones there. I don't think you need.
another app also on that other phone. And we have some assorted. What is this? This is a SNOM 7060. And then a 37 and a couple of Polycom, 2 or 3 Polycoms, yeah, and other phones. But so what we have here? We have a test PBX that is managing the desk phones. And that test PBX is on his own SIP domain and his own machines, and actually is on DigitalOcean. And then we have another FreeSWITCH machine on a different SIP domain that is managing all the WebRTC. So the interesting things will be, let's use the desk phone to call the WebRTC, and let's see if it works. I will call from this Polycom here, and that is 1015 on that different network, and we will call with 1000, and let's see if it calls. Yes! And you see that
now we have echo.
Is different now, and so now we can, for example, do an attended transfer, and I will transfer this. It can be taught like a DID, an incoming call. I will transfer from this WebRTC phone to the iPhone that is that one. This one. Let's see if it works. And this 1009. So, attended transfer. So there will be a music. Okay. This is now with the music, and we put this one. And let's see if it comes. Nothing happened. I think that probably I botched. Okay. I suspect this one is not
Live demos.
It's not true.
This is always the best part of live demos.
Yeah. Let's go back to login.
We need James Bodie here. It's like a dangerous demo.
That's the way. So let's try again. Attend the transfer. And here we are.
There we go.
Now this one is speaking with data. And I hang up here. And the Polycom is now speaking with the WebRTC phone. And this is a little demo of what is possible right now with all this WebRTC technology. And the interesting thing is that you really can do any kind of things, because you are mixing actually the power of HTML, so the capability of having whatever kind of client you want, where you can propagate text messages, you can send material back and forth, you can send commands, for example, those buttons that were on the WebRTC, both the client and the app, are just they are just sending some commands in the background, and this will activate some special functions. So it's exactly the same like with desk phones. You just program the buttons on the desk phones, and so you can have BLF, you can have message waiting indicators, you can have obviously the transfer, the on hold, and all these various things that makes our world ticking. So the important things, the message that I want to convey here is that real world communication is not only about Snapchat or a video between two teenagers that just chat each other and about what they do in the evening. Real world communication is very structured. Has a lot of implication, and you need
the adoption rate of RTC it's staggering if you look at the statistics, how much it's grown.
Yeah, definitely, and you'll see more and more. But you may think at the WebRTC just as a transport. I mean, we have SIP on UDP, SIP on TCP, and SIP on WebRTC. That's it. I mean, it's just a transport. But the problem
that's why Verto is an endpoint, right?
I mean, Verto is a different thing, and Verto is very, very useful and has been developed to allow for web developers to easily interact from their website with FreeSWITCH and with general communication. And definitely, because on the back you have FreeSWITCH, also through Verto, you can do so many things. The difference between Verto and SIP is that when you do use SIP in your clients, you very easily can reuse all your infrastructure. So all your enterprise and legacy things that works with SIP will work without any kind of difference with a SIP client. And also you can scale.
You know, one of the big differences that makes it that I really enjoy the most is no more Wireshark. Right? It's just all in the inspector. You see it all right there. I mean, you can use Wireshark, right? But it's just so much easier to go up there in the screen and just say, use the inspector and just look at everything that's going on.
That's very interesting because, for example, following into the web browser is really, I think, something that helps you when you develop. And by the way, you can do the same also with using SIP. I mean, more or less, when you are let's say into our industry, you will find that at ACE both with SIP and with Verto. And the only difference, I think, is that SIP is just, let's say, the standard. and so you are, it's very easy for you to interrupt and to just plug your solution into an enterprise environment where you have different for gateways, proxies, scalability, all these kind of things, and also when you want to mimic the workings of traditional phones, and when you want to mimic a desk phone, it's kind of easy to do it in SIP than to re-engineer it in a different protocol.
Well, and if you really think about it, all like the different browser issues we have are very similar back in the old days, like with the different interops of the different platforms on SIP, like the problems there were with Sonus and like all that stuff.
Exactly.
It's the same. It's the same old stories. It's just that now it's a matter of just working them all out.
And I expect really to have some leap forward in this area. I expect to have in 1 year or a couple of years all those differences that right now are kind of managed through some shim, some adapters, software adapters and things like that. But I expect them to really be boxed and wrapped by something that is very strong and interoperable. Like Cordova or some other big interop initiatives, like Ionic, Cordova, or any of those organizations that keeps the providing of application of apps for smartphones in a way that are interoperable. Because on the desktop, we have no more problems. on the desktop, we are completely interoperable. Both Macintosh, Windows, Linux, etc. The browsers works the same, and I usually I test it on all the platforms. I bought a Macintosh for this, and there is no problem at all. The only problem that we really have at this moment is iPhones, and I expect, by default, this problem to be solved in a very short time, I think maximum 1 year or so.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah,
let's hope so. It's come a long way, and the stuff like adapter actually does a lot of it. It brings a lot of things together. It really does. Some of those small quirks, just adapter just kind of magically fixes all that stuff up.
Yes, definitely. No, the problem with iPhone is really not the difference between browsers that can be, or between a JavaScript implementation that will be solved by the adapter. No, the problem with the iPhone is that Apple choose not to support the fundamental technologies of WebRTC on iPhone, and they just added 6 months ago, or maybe some more, support for WebRTC into their own Safari browser for iOS, but they deny to all others support for WebRTC. So you can't have support for WebRTC in other browsers or in app because they are not exposing the fundamental technologies. But seems that still in the next iOS, so iOS 12, that will be out, that is out, and still is not supported. So we will hope for iOS 13 that Friday 13 will bring some news.
Lucky number 13, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us about some other things you're working on. I think one of the things Ken forgot to mention was you're the author of the FreeSWITCH books. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah.
The challenges.
Writing books and all the ones that write books knows about is something that seems so simple and short, and then takes an awful amount of time. And it's just incredible how long it is. And I'm kind of quick in writing, but and I write much better than I speak, by the way. But it's just the procedure of producing a book that takes a lot of time. And I'm very happy, and it was beautiful to collaborate with Anthony Minnesale, Tony, that is the author of FreeSWITCH itself, the main developer and the leader of the project. And we wrote those three books together, and was kind of an experience. But because it provided me with an easy way to ask more and more knowledge to Tony, and it was so exciting at the end when we made it and the books were in print, and you can actually see them on the bookshelf, and it gives you a lot of satisfaction. So
I've bought
was,
everyone.
yeah, yeah, it was really a nice thing. And I'm working on a new book, and that I have no idea when it will be finished. That is about enterprise and carrier grade telecommunication and WebRTC. So how to scale, how to make things reliable, how to assure the Six Sigma, and that 99.9999999 of uptime, and all these kind of things. So will be mainly about the modern ways to build clusters and high available installation of
A
infrastructure.
lot of that has actually changed. It has drastically changed. Like all the HA was pretty much all the same for years. And then all of a sudden in the past year or two, there's all these new technologies associated with HA.
We got a lot of things that are really new, and in a lot of different areas. So, for example, with OpenCPS, you have the capability of having big clusters where all the proxy servers are active. So it's not the normal high availability things where you have just two servers. One is passive, the other is active, and you have the IP address that moves.
But the binary replication
capability to have a cluster of all active servers that actually stay in sync through Anycast. And if you mix this with geolocation and geodistribution, you can have a really nice and sweet high available N distribution network for your application and for your services. At the same time, you have another area that has seen so many innovation, that is how database can be linked together to have multi-master replication in also here in real time and in georeplication. That is different because you have real time on very high speed networks, and you have georeplication on wide area links. So if you combine those two technologies, you end up having clusters in multiple data centers that are.
That's always been the big challenge. Yeah. Because all of a sudden, once you start geo-distributing them, the synchronization becomes so much more challenging.
Definitely, and then you have all the part of the application. So the capability of having the application totally decoupled from the machine where the application is running. This means that you can have a machine going down and the application continues running on other machines, keeping the state. And I mean, there are various challenges.
And then when it comes back up, it's back online.
Yeah. Because
in the old days, that was always a big challenge. Okay, fine, we can lose a node, but the thing is, you got to get the node back.
And so those are the various aspects of this. And for example, also another area that is also interesting is network file systems. We're used to rely on NFS mainly, but NFS has some shortcoming when you try to use it in our kind of purposes. And so, for example, what has
like
been
recordings and voicemail.
Yeah, but what has been developed in time to have high availability for NFS is, for example, to use DRBD as a backend for the file system. So you have, let's say, two machines that are replicating at the physical level the hard disk. And this was very good because it was the only solution that was available once in a time, and it has also the let's say added bonus that you can use the same solution, this let's say hard disk synchronization. Also for managing, for example, a database, because you have the two machines that are keeping the hard disk in sync. But what means that? Means, first of all, that only one will be online at any time, because only one will be available for writes, because you write on one machine and is replicated on the other machine at the physical level, not a logical level. And this from one side. From the second thing is if you happen to have something wrong on one machine, it will be replicated, not at a logical level, at a physical level on the other one. So you can really damage two hard disks at the price of you are damaging one hard disk, and you have only two, because or maximum maybe three or something like. No, the interesting thing is that in the meantime has been developed network file systems. So you have also now the concept of a cluster of file systems, and obviously you can have very big and complex network file systems like the Google one or things, or other kind of giant implementation. But you have also implementations that are usable at the medium level or the enterprise level. For example, GlusterFS, and then you have synchronization of file system. I mean, there is the interesting thing in this area is that there are many moving parts, many cog and wheels, and all of them.
There's a lot of different ways to achieve the same thing as well. So, like,
this from one side, but from
Gluster
the
is
other
one
side,
way to do it.
You really want to achieve a lot of things. You want to achieve a cluster of file system. You want to achieve cluster of database. You want to achieve a cluster of SIP proxies. And for example, you want to unload all that is very intensive from FreeSWITCH to the proxies. So, for example, you want to be the proxy that manage registrations, presence, and this kind of things. And you want FreeSWITCH to do the smart things. You want FreeSWITCH to do the advanced things, not to do the heavy lifting that FreeSWITCH is much better employed to do things that are more connected to the logic and more relevant to the media and to his part, and leave, let's say, the dumb part of signaling, the massive part of signaling to the proxy. For example, in what is the best is when you have thousands of phones. If you put the registration one time at a minute or one time at each 2 minutes, it will kill your FreeSWITCH if you have also other kind of applications running. If you move the management of registrations into the proxies, this will be incredibly easy and light. And the same for a presence, and the same for BLF. I mean, when you were talking about Wireshark before, but when you do a TCP dump of the signaling, or SN grep or whatever, you see that let's say 90% or maybe 95% of the traffic is options, registration, subscribes, and almost nothing. I mean, and that's.
But we also have things to kind of like still keep. We can make a very efficient use of those and use something like mid-registrar, right? And that'll,
exactly
it'll keep things. Yeah, it'll keep things in sync, right? As opposed to completely moving them out.
Exactly that. But you can have a mixed environment with mid-register, but what is my preferred architecture is to have the proxies taking care of authentication, and then just let FreeSWITCH know. So FreeSWITCH doesn't do the authentication, but it just get the registration from the main registrar, and it just accept it. And in this way, it's the lightest possible, and you still have FreeSWITCH that knows that this user is registered. So you have the best of both worlds. And that's very good, because with mid-register, you can have the registration that is sent one times each hour instead of one times each minute. And this is obviously not one only of magnitude, but is almost 2 order of magnitude. So it's something that really makes the difference, and is not even authorized, so it doesn't even need to do heavy lifting with XML curl or whatever. You just get it and push it into memory. But I see that we're getting very late, and what I felt that is the most important things for our community is to really feel that we're all working to the same aim. That is bringing together the latest technologies, but in a stable way, in a way that really keep you working, and on which one you can count on, and not just for play the bleeding edge and be the happy kid, but you really want to have something that you can bring to the CIO or to the CEO, and having it approved with a budget, with commercial ways to have support and development. And
And so
I mean,
that's always been one of the big problems, especially in the beginning of open source. When the open source telephony projects really started up, you know, it was people would be like, "I, what, we can't use open source," and then
yes,
all of a sudden,
yeah,
it's 10, 15 years later, and they realize that everyone's using it.
yeah, when you have a function that is so central into a corporation, into an enterprise, into an organization, you really are scared to give it to whatever that you don't have a number to call. The problem is the person that is in charge, that normally is the CTO, he will answer to the CEO if something goes wrong, and it will be his own responsibility. I mean, if you call Cisco and you spend, let's say, 3 millions, at least if something broke, I mean, is Cisco guilty? I mean, what I am to
Right.
be better
But the
than
power
Cisco.
of open source, the other thing is the power of open source is with even if you spent 3 million with Cisco, you would never be able to get to the actual authors, like the
But this
actual
from
developers. You get stuck with tier 1, tier 2 support, and maybe they know what the problem is, maybe they
this
don't,
from one
right?
side, but from another side, really, 2 or 3 millions are not a big is not a big number. I don't think that you will get anywhere near to tier one. I mean, tier one, if you are a telco, yes, maybe. But if you are also a medium enterprise, and I mean, also if you spend some million, is not a big number. Is not a big number. And no, the important things I think is to realize that, for example, all the investments that has been put into, let's make a name, Avaya. So, I mean, the important things is really to understand that when you are building something that is critical for your company, you better use open source, not only because it's usually with less bug and less security problem, but also because more or less an open source software, an open source project never dies, and there is always someone that is available for you to fix, to get it working, to bring the new features and these kind of things. But let's say you got Asterisk 5 years ago. I mean, today you want to find someone that add some feature to your Asterisk PBX in your company. It will take like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or same thing. You got your telco working on using a gateway, a FreeSWITCH based gateway between PSTN and WebRTC. You made it, let's say, 2 years ago. Now it will take you, let's say, a couple of phone calls to have a very competent and a lot of people that can make an offer to you. And you can choose between the best, or you can choose on the cost. Let's say you invested 3 years ago, let's say a small figure, $200,000 for a small Avaya installation. And now you want to extend it to go through WebRTC for your customers. What do you do? Nothing. Nothing. I mean, you can't.
No, you can.
The best. I was about to tell it. Yeah, you can use FreeSWITCH to extend it, but it will be because FreeSWITCH is so smart that it is able to interoperate. It will not be that someone will extend your Avaya. I mean, that is simply dead. That's it.
Well, because there's only so many card slots. Anyways, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you to you for having me, and keep up the good job.
Well, you as well. You as well. You're always welcome to come back. That's for sure. Back to you, Ken.
All right, hey, before we let Giovanni go, hey, Giovanni, we've got a question from YouTube. Umut, if I didn't murder his name too badly. He was asking, is the source code that you were demoing, is that available anywhere out there on GitHub or something like that?
No, those are just experiments and implementations that are not published. And I'm making my mind in the future to making them available. In the meantime, this for answering to the YouTube user that made the question. If you check on the latest book, particularly on Mastering FreeSWITCH, you will see that there is code in it that is both commented, explained, and also available on PactPub to download. And those that you have seen are elaborations on that code.
Let's also not forget that it's also in the FreeSWITCH source tree, right? So we have 2 RTC examples in there that utilize.
Yes.
So there's the VC, right, which we're using right now, and then there's the old dial pad. Well, I forgot. Ken, what was the name of that? Or Giovanni, what was the name of that?
It was just Verdo. There's Verdo, which is actually mod Verdo, the library itself, and then there's in that directory in the FreeSWITCH source tree, it's under the HTML5 subdirectory right off the root of the source tree. And there's Verdo, which is Tony's reference design. That's Tony. It's not pretty. He just throws features in and shows you how to use them in that. And then as you mentioned, we're using Verdo Communicator, which is also available there in the source tree, which that uses a more advanced Angular JS framework and ties back into some other bells and whistles back in with FreeSWITCH mod Verdo. For other people that are looking for stuff, I mean, there is the old SIP over WebRTC implementation in Mod Sophia, which a lot of people use with SIP.js or some of the other, WebRTC, SIP over WebRTC implementations for the browser. So, there's a ton of examples out there for checking that kind of thing out.
Do we have any more questions?
No, that was it for today. Actually, we did have another question. There were some people asking about getting help with FreeSWITCH. So I'm going to go ahead and answer that for those guys. Guys, there's go to freeswitch.org, check out all the different things that we have there for getting help with FreeSWITCH, from Confluence to the mailing list, even Jira and all the other fun tools that we have there, so you can see what's going on with FreeSWITCH. If you need professional help with FreeSWITCH, don't forget, email consulting@freeswitch.com, and you can get with Anthony and the crew, and they can see if they can't help you out on your project. Rates have always been reasonable, and those guys are really fast at turnaround usually. Depending on your project, don't ask them for a huge project to turn around in 24 hours because let's be realistic. But they do good work, and so check those guys out. You can never go wrong.
And the training. Training. Don't forget the training.
Training, yeah. There's training. That happens once a month now? Is that right? Or every couple of weeks?
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. I think the next one is on the 8th.
Yeah, so there's information on that on freeswitch.com also. So you guys can get all that in there. And don't forget Tony, Brian, Mike, the rest of the crew over there working hard to get all this stuff going and keeping us making phone calls, playing with WebRTC, and all kinds of other fun stuff related to FreeSWITCH. So thanks to those guys. Michael, Giovanni, any last words?
Use open source.
All right. Again, special thanks to Giovanni. He's been around the community for a long time now, so thanks for coming out today, Giovanni. Mr. Mavridis, thank you very much for talking with Giovanni today. And guys, we'll see you back here next week. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
You've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. Keep up with the latest happenings by subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit us at freeswitch.com.